Hi everyone, I'm Dana and welcome back to Inverter Always. In today's episode, we'll be covering the commissioning and setup procedures for the Daikin 1 smart thermostat. All right, let's jump right in. All right, you guys. So before we get started, I just wanted to let you know there's really two parts to the video today. The first part's going to be going through commissioning steps specifically. And then the second part's going to be, once you're done with commissioning, kind of fine tuning the setup from some of the main menus. Also, we're going to be going over how to use the Daikin 1 controller, the main menu screens, the schedules, geofencing, that sort of thing. Really an opportunity for you, the technician, to kind of get 2-in-1 in this video, set it up, commission it, and then also, what you need to teach the homeowner. And then if you're the homeowner watching this video, the steps that should be taken to get the commissioning done properly in the event you're the one doing it, and just a few key points on how to use the Daikin 1 once the commissioning process is complete. In case you just moved into your house and this was already installed, some things you can do in the menus. So really two parts to today's video. I'll go ahead and I'll put timestamps below just in case you need to jump around in the event that you've gotten maybe halfway through in the field or at your house and you're just getting stuck up on a particular step. So without further ado, let's go ahead and let's jump right in. I've got about 150 snippets between a couple of different installations I've done over the past couple of weeks. Some of the snippets are pulled from my house, which has a VRV system installed, P1, P2 connections. And then some of the snippets are pulled from a buddy's house who has a mini split installed with S21 connections. So S21 mini split, P1, P2, typically VRV. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go. This is a longer video than normal. I will try to go pretty quickly through most of the steps. I do have some explanation included with many of the steps though, and really my target goal is just get you as much information as possible. That way when you guys are going through here, just in case you have questions, a lot of the questions that have come up over the last couple of months, I want to address as much as possible in this video, you guys. So if you enjoy, make sure you click the like button below. It really helps out the channel. And let's go ahead and get started. All right, so as we jump into looking at the Daikin 1 controller, when you first snap it onto the back plate to the wall, it's going to give you that booting icon. And it usually only takes a couple of minutes to boot. Once it boots the first time, you're going to be asked what language you'd like to choose. Pick whatever language best suits your application. I do like to click on the use large font box at the bottom. It's a lot easier to see the font, and then click on continue. Now you'll see many times whether or not you have a newer or slightly older Daikin 1 thermostat that not all thermostats come from the factory with all of the software already installed. So in this case, we had a mini split that we were hooking up. We got lucky. This particular controller already had the mini split software installed, so we were able to select S21. On my house, I only had unitary software available. And so in this particular case, if you are installing a system, whether it's a VRV or mini split, you don't have the available software showing on the screen, that's okay, because one of the first commissioning steps is connecting the Daikin 1 to the internet. Once you connect the Daikin 1 to the internet, then you can download whatever software packages, software updates, feature updates are the latest available. I highly recommend this. We actually did a video on how to connect to Wi-Fi. So if you haven't seen that, I'll put a card at the top now so you can go check that out. Today, we're quickly going to connect to Wi-Fi and we're just going to keep going through the steps. So again, pick, if it's available, whatever system you physically installed. If it's not available, then just leave it on unitary and click continue. It will ask you if you're sure you want to. For now, just say yes, click continue, and then you'll get a little scroll wheel. Now, as that scroll wheel thinks, it's basically just trying to make that connection and load that software set up on the Daikin 1. Once it's done, the dot will fill in and you'll be able to click on continue. So when you click continue, this is going to be the beginning of your setup process. If for any reason you need to factory reset your Daikin 1 controller, you can click on setup options. And from here, you can click on factory reset. You can also use your Daikin 1 as a demo for either the dealer demo mode if you want to show, I don't know, other contractors in your office how to do it, or you can use a homeowner demo for demonstration purposes during your sales process. Go ahead and click the back button. It's just the little left caret up at the top left of the screen next to setup options. You can also click the button that's physically on the scroll wheel. That scroll wheel on the right hand side is a button. The only thing it does as of right now, January of 2021, is go back. So go ahead and do either of those, go back, and then click on begin setup. Once you click on begin setup, you are going to be taken to a 5-step setup process. Step number 1 is communication. We're going to be doing that in just a moment. That's where we will set up the Wi-Fi and download all of our updates. You don't need to do anything else at this point because we need to make sure first and foremost that we have the proper software installed before we go through all the commissioning steps. Once you get the software updated, then we can go through steps 2 through 5. So click on communication. As of right now, your equipment type is whatever you've selected. Don't worry about that at this point because, again, we're going to update the software and start this process all over. So click on Home Wi-Fi. As of right now, it's disconnected. Then click on Networks. And then just like your phone or tablet or TV or computer, anything connecting to Wi-Fi, it's going to go out and it's going to look for local Wi-Fi SSIDs, different networks. Once those populate, you can click on whichever network is yours. Now, if you're a contractor installing one of these for a homeowner who maybe hasn't moved in yet, something like new construction, then what you can do is you can use your phone's hotspot. Again, we discussed this in the how to connect to Wi-Fi video. It's very simple to do. If you don't have good cell reception, then you can connect the Daikin 1 to your local Wi-Fi back at the office and then do your software update and then take this out on site and physically install it. So go ahead and click on whichever network is your network and it will ask you for your password. Here's where you're going to plug in whatever your password is. Now, the keys are very small, so what I would recommend is you click that box next to show password just so you can make sure you're typing it in correctly. Yes, we did select use large font, but the buttons are still pretty small. So once you've plugged that in, go ahead and click on the done button at the bottom and it will start to connect. Now there's 2 steps to connect your Daikin 1 completely. First step is just make sure that you plugged in the password correctly and it can connect to the internet. The second step is actually connecting to Daikin's cloud server. So you'll see here the first step, it has a check mark on the right hand side next to internet. It's connected, good. It's not quite connected to the Daikin 1 cloud, so we're just going to wait for a moment until it finally connects. Now this process only takes about 10 seconds. Once it connects to the Daikin 1 cloud, at this point, this is when you're just going to need to wait and be patient for a couple of minutes because it could take up to 5 minutes for the Daikin 1 to actually start the update. And sometimes what it will do is it will just immediately start the update. It will tell you, hey, we're updating. Other times, as in this case here, we had to wait for about 5 minutes. It actually downloaded the update behind in the background, so we didn't actually see it fully download the update until it was almost done. And then it said, hey, we're verifying the update. So you just have to be patient here at this point. So you'll see in the next snippet here, it populated about 85% of the way through, letting us know we have an update that's downloading. We did get a communication error halfway through. You can get a communication error in a couple of different instances. While you're updating, if you previously selected a equipment type that's different from the actual equipment that you're connecting to. So for example, on my house, I have VRV, but I connected to Unitary just because I didn't have VRV available before I had updated it. It gave me a communication error. Here in this case, we had a communication error pop part of the way through the update process. It's not a big deal. It's going to go away after about 2 seconds, and then it will start verifying the update. And then once it verifies the update, it'll tell you that it has to be rebooted. You don't have to do anything. It'll automatically reboot. So you're kind of just sitting and waiting at this point. Once it's done and the Daikin 1 reboots, it's going to go all the way back to the beginning where it asks you what language you'd like to use. So because we have not actually commissioned it yet, it still thinks it's brand new out of the box. If you did, however, go through all the commissioning steps without connecting it to the internet, at that point, it would just take you back to the home screen. And if that's the case, towards the latter part of the video, I'm going to show you how to go back in from the home screen to get back to this commissioning menu so you can then reset it up however you need to set it up. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to click English. We're going to use large font and we're going to click continue. Now you're going to see we have both S21 and P1, P2 available. And here's where you will select whatever system you physically installed. So at my house, I would select VRV. On my buddy's house, I would select S21. Now, the only way you're going to know which type of software you need to use is by looking at the indoor unit to determine how you physically installed your Daikin 1 controller. We just got done with a video last week showing you how to install the Daikin 1 controller. So if you have not seen that yet and you have questions regarding the install, go ahead and check that video out. I'll put a card up at the top now. So for my buddy's house, we picked S21 and go ahead and click continue. Now you can begin your setup. Now your communication, step number 1, has already been done. That's what we just got done doing. So go ahead and click next step. And now we go to the personalization, step number 2. So here we can change the language if we need to. We can select or deselect, use large font if we need to. Date and time should not need to be changed because now it's connected to the internet and it gets all of its information from the internet. Your degree of units, so whether or not you want Celsius or Fahrenheit. Fahrenheit is default in North America at least. So if you are using Fahrenheit, just leave it there. So really the only thing you need to change is device name. And I do recommend you change your device name. So click on device name. It's going to give you a bunch of default options, but you can also select other at the bottom. So we selected other, and then it gave us the option to type in the name. And we typed in master bedroom. This is from my buddy's house. He put a mini split in his master bedroom. At my house, I have 3 units. I have one in my great room downstairs. I have one in my loft upstairs and one in my garage. So I gave them all those names accordingly. This is where you can kind of get creative. Now, the reason it's important to plug in these names is because when you connect your thermostats to the Daikin 1 Home app, you want to be able to tell which thermostat is which throughout your house. Some houses have 1 thermostat, some houses have 3, some houses have 8. It just depends on your house. So you want to be able to talk to and change the temperature for the right room of your house. So when you're done, click done, and then we're going to go to the next step. So the next step is your equipment setup. Really, this is probably one of the most important steps throughout the commissioning process. Everything else is kind of preference, really, when it comes down to it. Your indoor and outdoor unit have to be plugged in. So you'll see the red asterisk marks. Go ahead and click on indoor unit, and we're going to plug in the model. So click on model, and then just scroll down until you find the indoor model in which you installed. We installed an FTXS, so we selected that, and then it asked us for which size, in which we had a 12. So we clicked on 12, and you can see that that dot fills in, and then we're just going to go back a screen. Again, you can do that with the top left caret that's pointed left next to FTXS at the top, or just click the button on the scroll wheel. Just push that scroll wheel in. It's a little button that goes back, and you'll see that the unit type filled in with wall mount, so we don't need to do anything there. Serial number is optional. I didn't plug anything in there, but you can if you want. It would probably be a good idea if you're the contractor to plug in the serial number. That way it's there for maintenance purposes down the road. Now we're going to do the same thing for the outdoor unit. We're going to pick model number. We had an RXS LVJU series. Now there's also an option if you don't see what unit you have installed, you can always go all the way to the bottom and just manually type it in. We had an RX12, so we picked on 12 and then back. Again, we did not plug in the serial number in our example. Now, once you have your indoor and outdoor unit plugged in, you have your standard filter. You can change that if you have like an electronic air cleaner. There's also your Daikin 1 home air monitoring tool you can set up. And then the add equipment would be, at least for right now, January 2021, adding a auxiliary heater. We're not going to go through all of the steps today to actually set up an auxiliary heater. Here in the near future, there's going to be an update coming that allows us to use those 2 auxiliary contacts on the Daikin 1 for other things, such as a humidifier, dehumidifier, other devices, etc., etc. So I'm going to do a dedicated video on that at some point in the near future. But the add equipment button, this is where you would add it if you had it. We're going to go ahead and click next step. Next step is system optimization. Really nothing to do here at this point because we are just barely commissioning our system. The equipment hasn't been running, so there isn't a whole lot of information to gather here. But the one thing I would suggest is checking the calibration of the thermistor. And you can do that. Just grab your meter, put a temperature probe on it. Make sure you get a good average temperature for the room and around the Daikin 1 controller, and then make sure that the temperature being displayed on the Daikin 1 controller is accurate. As far as your air history goes, that's just air history. We don't have any air history yet because it's a brand new system. And then your status is going to be your air thermistor status on your indoor and outdoor units. Again, we don't have a whole lot of data because the system hasn't been turned on yet, but if you click on indoor, you can see return air temperature, and you can see whether or not it's calling thermo on off. So is it calling for heating or cooling? Right now it's off because we haven't turned the system on yet. Outdoor air temp, right now we don't have any information coming from our outdoor unit. And don't worry about serial conversion because that's actually your software version of the outdoor unit PCB, which won't give you anything anyway. So it's at this point kind of an unnecessary piece of information. Go ahead and click next step, and that takes us to preferences. So preferences is going to give you your cool heat settings for the house. This is kind of important. This is how we're going to set up the thermostats, set points, and deadbands. Your house settings, which is really just the size of the room that the thermostat is mounted in, dealer information, and reminders. So go ahead and click on cool heat settings. And then you're going to have your min-max set points. This is, how high can your thermostat go and how low can your thermostat go. If you don't change it, then technically you can lower your set point all the way to 57 and all the way up to 90 if you really want. For residential applications, we typically don't change this because it's your house. You can do what you want. In commercial applications, we do typically restrict this based on what the building owner wants the tenants to be able to do. Your deadband, I do want to talk about your deadband. So this is your set point differential. So if my heat set point is 70 and I set my deadband to 2 degrees, it's going to make my cooling set point 72. So your heating and cooling set point are always at least 2 degrees apart. You can always widen those set points manually at the home screen of the thermostat, but 2 degrees, if that's what you set on your deadband, is as tight as your 2 set points can go. This is also important to note that when you're running dual set points, that's auto mode. You may not be using auto mode. You may just put it in heating or cooling. So this is only for your auto mode configuration. And then your overcooling, if you want like a little bit of dehumidification to occur, you can set that appropriately. I typically don't, but you can if you want, especially depending on where you live. You may need to do a little overcooling. Basically just it's like an intentional overshoot by 1 degree. So then you have your changeover settings. This is when your mode of operation changes from heating to cooling or from cooling to heating when you have it in the auto mode. So if you take our example of heat set point to 70 and a cool set point to 72. The out of the box changeover differential is 1 degree, which means if you're in heating, you're heating to 72, and the room has satisfied, but the sun has come out, it's in the early afternoon, and now your room temperature is 72. Because your cooling set point is 72, nothing happens. But if the room temperature gets 1 degree past 72, so 73 in this case, it starts what's called the timer. And the idea with the timer is we don't want to immediately change the mode from heating to cooling or from cooling to heating in the event that the load changed in the space just temporarily due to external factors. You know, in locations like where I live, Pacific Northwest, you know, generally we don't want our thermostat to be switching modes if we opened a door or if we opened a window for some temporary relief. So what I'll do typically is take that changeover timer and I will change it to, 15 minutes or 30 minutes. So that way I have a little time buffer. Now, what your forced changeover differential will do is override that timer. So if the timer is sitting there ticking along internally because my room temperature has gone to 73 and my set point for cooling is 72, it waits and it waits until that timer expires to change. But if it gets 1 more degree above that set point, then that forced changeover differential overrides the timer and it will automatically switch modes. We talk about this in way more detail in one of our videos that we did on the nav controller when we discussed how your system works and how to use your nav controller. So if you want more information on auto mode in general, definitely check out that video. I'll go ahead and I'll put a card on that at the top now. So 15-minute guard timer, and then we're going to go ahead and go back. Your house settings, this is really preference only. This doesn't change the way that the system behaves, at least not at this time. So house size, this is your room size. This is where your thermostat is mounted. How big is that room? And then dealer information is where you're going to plug in the contractor information, the contact information. So when something goes wrong, who should the homeowner contact? Your reminders, again, this is preference, but if you want a filter change reminder or service reminder, you can enable them here. And now we're done. So there isn't a whole lot to the commissioning process. Again, it's a 5 to 10 minute process once you've updated your thermostat software. So get connected to the Wi-Fi, and that could be a 5 to 10 minute process. But once that's done, this actual commissioning process should take, maybe 5 minutes, especially after you do it a few times. So it does go relatively quickly. Now, one thing I want to note is in step 3, your equipment setup, there is some additional settings that will populate for VRV systems that we did not see in today's video. The only thing that's going to pop up that didn't pop up in the snippet today is field settings. The way that VRV systems work is the indoor units have these things called field settings, which is factory programming that we can change on the indoor unit board through the thermostat. And we went into ridiculous detail in a video for the nav controller talking about what the field settings were, what we recommend changing them to for residential and commercial applications. And so if you're interested in learning more about field settings, I will probably do a short video for field settings on the Daikin 1, really just showing you how to get to them and how to change them. But since we've already done a video on what they are, what they mean, and in great detail, I'll go ahead and I'll put a card up at the top now, just in case you're interested in checking that out. So once we have steps 1 through 5 complete, go ahead and click on complete setup. And it will ask you, hey, before you complete the commissioning process, do you want to set your font back to normal? I leave this unchecked because I want big font all the time. My eyes are terrible, I feel like, these days. But again, whatever you feel like, go ahead and click continue, and your system will go back to the home screen. All right, you guys, so at this point, the basic commissioning steps are complete. Now that you're back at the home screen, as long as you don't have a communication error, you're good to go. The next portion of this video is going to be going through Just a quick restart the thermostat. I want to show you how to restart the thermostat in the event you connected it to the Wi-Fi in earlier steps, but for some reason it never downloaded the update automatically, and you got kind of tired of waiting after 5, 10, 15 minutes, nothing ever changed. So you went ahead and went through the commissioning steps. Now you're back at the home screen. You're still kind of waiting for something to happen. I'm going to show you real quick how you can internally restart the thermostat. And then after that, we're going to go through, your general, here's how you use the thermostat. This would be a good time for the homeowners, train the homeowners, show the homeowners, here's how you use your thermostat. So as we get into the main screen, there's going to be 3 lines at the top right corner. You're going to click that. It's going to give you your settings. So go ahead and click that now, and then click on settings. And then you're going to click on configuration at the very bottom. Now we're going to come back and we're going to go through all of these settings here shortly. But for right now, we're just trying to do a quick restart on the thermostat. So click configuration and then click on system components, and then click on thermostat, and then you're going to click on restart thermostat. Now, before you do, notice the software version. We had 2.0.2, and then also make sure you write down your Wi-Fi address. You need the last 4 digits of that thermostat's Wi-Fi address. Every thermostat has a different Wi-Fi address. Think of the Wi-Fi address as the MAC address. You're going to need those last 4 digits to get into what we call the dealer edit screen in later steps. In the event that you did not commission the controller properly or using the correct software package, and now you need to go back and recommission the controller, how the heck do I get back to that commissioning step 1 through 5 that we looked at here just a little bit ago? I'm going to show you how to do that here shortly. So write down the Wi-Fi address and then click on restart thermostat. And it asks, do you want to restart? Click continue. And your Daikin 1 will reboot. It generally takes about 1 minute to reboot. And when it reboots, it takes you back to the home screen. Now here at this point is when your update should trigger. It might take a couple of minutes. You see that our thermostat here started cooling to 66 degrees. And then all of a sudden we popped a verifying update. So what it did, it updated in the background, and once it was complete, it just popped up on the screen, verifying update. Cool, awesome. We just kind of hang out and wait. And when it's done, it says it's been downloaded and now it needs to reboot. Again, this will happen automatically. There's nothing we need to do. We just keep waiting and keep waiting. And then it goes back to the main screen. Once it goes back to the main screen, you can actually go back in and see what your software version is. We're going to do that here in just a minute. But you'll see at the bottom of your Daikin 1, there are 5 icons. And so we're going to quickly just go through those so I can show you what they all do. So the one on the bottom left is your home screen. It has a little house. If you want to change the temperature, then you click on the little scroll wheel icon at the bottom. Now you can use the touch screen to change the temperature, but you can also use the scroll wheel on the right hand side. And if you kind of squint your eyes at the scroll wheel, it has all those lines. Notice it looks very similar to the icon on the touch screen at the bottom, that little scroll wheel. So that's kind of like a cheat, right? That's your set point adjustment. Then if you click on the little calendar, that's your schedule. And by default, the schedule's turned off. If you want to turn it on, you certainly can. I don't prefer using a schedule myself because inverter heat pumps are designed to maintain the same comfortable temperature year round. So I just leave my house at 70 almost all year. If you do want a schedule, then you can change the actions. So you have your awake action and your sleep action, and you can add more actions when we actually go into the settings here shortly. The little leaf icon at the bottom, that's your geofencing feature. Again, disabled out of the box. Right now you can see away is off. And the way that this works is when everybody who uses the Daikin 1 Home app has left the house, or I should say when the last person leaves the house who uses that app, the Daikin 1 controller can see that. And at that point, it will then set back to whatever temperature you have programmed on this screen. So again, we talked about how to connect the Daikin 1 to Wi-Fi in great detail. We went through step by step on how to connect your Daikin 1 stat to your phone app in a previous video. If you have any questions about that and you want more detail as to how to get your phone app set up, I would highly recommend checking that video out. I'll try to put another card at the top here in the event that that card does not populate. Sometimes YouTube does not let you put one card for the same video in one video. So I'll go ahead and I'll put that video at the end with a link as well. So the last icon at the bottom right is the wavy lines. This is for your air quality. And you'll see that it tells us, hey, our air quality is good. If you do not have the Daikin 1 home air monitoring tool, then what it simply does is it goes from the last time you changed your filter. So it's a time-based feature. Eventually, it'll tell me my air quality is bad because I don't have the Daikin 1 home air monitoring tool at my house yet, which is fine. It'll just eventually tell me your filter needs to be changed. Now, the fan speeds feature, this is where you can change what your fan speed does while you're heating and cooling. And this is pretty cool. So you can change your cooling fan speed and your heating fan speed. And then you can also change the position of your louver directly from this screen. And that is if you have an indoor unit with a louver. So my two indoor units in my house are ducted. I don't have louvers, but the unit in my garage does have a louver because it's a wall mount. And then my buddy's house, which is the thermostat we have snippets of here right now, has a mini split with a wall mount that has not only one vertical louver, but a horizontal louver as well. So it can blow air up and down, left and right. It's very cool. So we're going to go in and we're going to change that. I think we changed it from low to auto, and then we changed the vane position to oscillating, which means swing. And then we did that for both vertical and horizontal. And then we went in and did the same thing for heating. So we have a heating fan speed of auto and our vane positions. What's really cool is you can do this for heating one way, and then you can do it totally different for cooling if you want. So if you want your cooling vanes to be fixed to blow at a particular angle, but you want your heating vanes to oscillate or swing, you can do that. I really like that feature. It gives you guys, the users, ultimate control of your airflow, which I really appreciate as a user myself. So back at the home screen here, we've gone through the 5 icons at the bottom, and those are kind of your quick access icons. So you don't have to go into a menu as a user. One of the whole purposes of the design of the Daikin 1 controller was, Daikin wanted something simple for the end user, something quick for the end user. Whatever the end user may want to do, we want them to be able to do it, without having to get in and navigate through 5 different menus. So being able to do everything at the bottom is very, very quick and handy as a user, but you do also have the ability to make changes from the menu. So we're going to jump in back into the settings, the 3 lines at the top right corner, click on settings. And now we're going to quickly just go through all of these different options specifically. So your system mode, this is how I change the mode of operation from heating to cooling, or just turn it off, or auto. Now we're not going to go into how your system works in auto mode. The ductless mini splits work one way, which is totally different from how the VRV systems work. I've done a few videos in the past. What is VRF series? Had 3 videos talking about how mini splits operate versus VRF systems. When we talked about the nav controller usage, I talked a little bit about how to use your nav controller, and we talked about how auto mode works in that video as well. So we're not going to get into too much detail today, but I will tell you I prefer to use just heating or just cooling on my house, but that is just my preference. Everybody's preference is different, and it will vary from location to location. So whatever you want here is totally up to you. Display options, you're not going to change a whole lot here because this was all set up in the original commissioning process. English, Fahrenheit, brightness if you want to change the brightness. And I like to use large font. The light bar and the screensaver are very cool features. So the bottom of the Daikin 1 has a LED that glows red anytime the unit is actively heating, and it will glow blue anytime the unit is actively cooling. And then your screensaver, there's a few options here. If you leave the screensaver as off, it will always display your room temperature. So it's your home screen all the time. If you pick blank screen, then it just turns the screen off. And if you pick clock, then you have analog or digital. I personally use digital clock. No particular reason, I just do. You'll see in the text at the top that it says touching the dial or screen, and then in parentheses, or if motion is detected, will wake the display. As of right now, January 2021, that motion walking up to the Daikin 1 to wake it doesn't work. It works, it's just been disabled in the software because of some bugs, I guess. There will be a future update that re-enables that once it's fixed, but just FYI, as of January 2021, that feature is currently disabled. Go ahead and pick whichever one you want, or just leave it off. I chose digital clock. And then you also have the ability to set up a lock, so you can lock out or set a PIN to prevent changes, just whatever 4-digit code you want used. And then as far as setting up the schedule goes, see where it says schedule templates. So earlier when we looked at the default icon, the calendar icon at the bottom of the screen, we had 2 actions. Here's where you can go in and you can change or add actions. And then the bottom selection, manual adjustment overrides. This is what you'll program to allow for an override. So for example, typically the way it works out of the box is, you'll have a 6 a.m. action in the schedule that says, all right, turn on heat at 70 degrees. But what that is, it's a one-time action. So the schedule acts like an invisible person who's standing there that does something at 6 a.m. And your Daikin 1 will stay there until it's told to change. It'll either be told to change because you walk up to it and change it, or you log into your app and change it, or another action later in the day changes it on the schedule. So we call that last command wins. So if you want to change the way that that works, for example, if you just want it to hold 70 degrees all day long, no matter what, then that's when you can go in here and you can change that. Your away setting, this is your geofencing feature. You can see that our geofencing feature is disabled right now. We're not using it. The box is unchecked. It's a neat feature, but because I don't personally believe in setting back my set point, I don't use this feature. I also don't use my schedule, but they're there in case you want to use them. Your comfort settings, as of right now, this doesn't do much, but in the future, having those auxiliary contacts that we can program for not just auxiliary heat, but now humidifiers and dehumidifiers, that's where this is going to come into play. And that's when you're going to go in and change your target humidity. But as of right now, there's no reason to change it because it doesn't do anything. Again, January 2021. But if you have your Daikin 1 connected to Wi-Fi, all of these updates that we've been talking about will automatically install on your Daikin 1 as soon as they become available. Your air quality, we just talked about that. The fan settings option here is identical to what we've already gone through. So nothing different in the menu compared to on the main screen for this one. Utility demand response. So this is if you live in an area where you're connecting your utility company to your house because you have peak energy times, they actually will have the ability to change your set points, which will kind of internally set back your system. We don't use this in the Northwest, so I have not set this up yet. But if you did need to, you would just go down to the bottom of this screen, click demand response, and set it up from here. The last option in the settings is configuration. And you're going to have a few different things we're going to talk about here. Your account, dealer, access. So we'll talk about dealer access here shortly, date and time settings, messages you may want displayed. We'll go through system components again, just real briefly. If you need to change your home Wi-Fi settings, so as the user, go into settings, go to configuration, go down to home Wi-Fi, you can change your Wi-Fi settings. And at the very bottom is the dealer edit screen. That dealer edit option is how you go all the way back to the original commissioning steps. So if you're a contractor who's now made it through this entire video trying to figure out how do I get back to the original commissioning steps, here you go, buddy. Main screen, settings, go down to configuration, go down to dealer edit. So the account, let's start at the top. Your account, this 6-digit code is different on every Daikin 1 controller. This is the code that you will input on your phone or tablet once you've set up your account on the Daikin 1 Home app. We did this in great detail, step by step, in the How to Connect to Wi-Fi video that we posted last week, I believe, 2 weeks ago. And so when you're there on your phone app, you click Add Thermostat, type in the 6-digit code, and they will link. Now, once they're linked, then your Daikin 1 thermostat will update, and it will actually tell you that your Daikin 1 is linked to whatever email you used on your account. And from here, you can also reset the registration. So if for any reason you're a new homeowner and you need to reset the registration on the Daikin 1, you can do it directly from the thermostat. Dealer access is disabled by default, but you can go in and enable it for 2 options: monitor only and give your dealer full access. So the idea here is if I have a contractor who's given me a maintenance agreement or service agreement, and they're going to monitor the condition of my house, then I can select monitor. And now I can also go in a menu I'll show you here just shortly, and I can enable alerts. So if there's an error code, it will get sent to the contractor, and they'll know before they come out to my house what the problem is. Whereas without this, you're going to have a contractor come out not knowing what the problem is. They're going to spend a trip to figure out what the problem is, and then they're going to have to spend a second trip likely to fix the problem. So just to try to mitigate costs all the way around for you, for the trip charge, for the contractor's costs, everybody's time involved, the contractor who's given you a maintenance agreement has access to see what happens on your controller, well, now there could be less time on the job. Which for me as a homeowner, the last thing I want is a contractor come out 2 different times or 3 different times to fix my system, when if they saw what was wrong with it, because they got an alert that said, hey, there's a U0 low refrigerant charge error code on the system, they know there's a leak coming out or bad sensor, they can be a little bit more prepared, ideally, hopefully. So go ahead and pick that if you want to use that, or just disable it. Your date and time settings, again, it's connected to Wi-Fi, so you should not have to change anything there. If you have a time zone change, maybe you take your Daikin 1 with you to a different location. I don't know. If you want to change the 24-hour time format, if you're running on military time, there's your option. And then messages, if you want to enable any service reminders, educational messages. I'll be honest, I don't know what educational messages would do because I haven't seen any come through yet. I've had a few test messages come through on my phone app, which was really, really freaky, by the way, because all of a sudden one night I was watching TV and my Daikin 1 app popped up and it's like, test, IO, and I'm like, what in the heck is that? It's tests coming from the Daikin cloud server. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, I get it now. The bottom box, you see where it says share alerts with the dealer. That's what you would check if in the last step you enabled the monitor. So now they can see alerts, not just what your thermostat is doing. System components. So we already looked at thermostat. We'll look at it again here shortly. Outdoor, indoor components. This is just what's going on with all your components. So if you click thermostat, you'll see that the device name, the model, software version, and the Wi-Fi address. Now look at that software version. Remember 5 to 10 minutes ago, I said, hey, write this down. We were running 2.0 something. Now we're running 2.1.16. So you can see from an earlier snippet to this snippet that when we went and did that post-commissioning software update, we actually got a new software package installed on the Daikin 1. So new features, just whatever. Wi-Fi address, you should have the last 4 digits because you need that here in about 2 seconds. And of course, if we need to restart the thermostat, we've already seen this screen. We're just kind of going back through. I just wanted to show you that software version change. Outdoor unit, it's just going to tell you the model. Same thing with your indoor unit. It's just going to tell you the model. And then if you have anything installed like the Daikin 1 home air monitoring system, it would tell you that under the air quality equipment. And if you have any reminders enabled, it would tell you that as well. Home Wi-Fi, this is where you'll go in and change the Wi-Fi network in the event you need to, or if your contractor used a hotspot to get everything commissioned and now you just moved in, you're wondering how in the heck do I hook up this Daikin 1 to Wi-Fi? This is where you would go. And then of course you can reference my how to connect your Daikin 1 to Wi-Fi video to actually go through a way more in-depth explanation of that. Now, the last item at the very bottom of configuration was dealer edit. And I told you you need a special code to get into the dealer edit screen, those last 4 digits of the Wi-Fi address. But I do need to tell you guys, it's not advised for the homeowner, the end user, if you're watching, to go in and change your dealer edit options because your system is commissioned a particular way. You don't want to go in there and accidentally change the equipment that's connected, the software package that's connected. If it's a VRV system, the last thing you want to do is go in and start messing with field settings because I can assure you, you will screw something up and then you're going to be way worse off than you were before. So please just take this warning seriously. Call your contractor, whoever your servicing contractor is. If there's an issue with your system, have them come out and have them check it out. So without further ado, let's go ahead and let's continue on to the next step. So from here, you're going to take that 4-digit code, you're going to plug it in. And if for some reason you don't know what your Wi-Fi address is, there's a little eye icon in the corner there, which will tell you what it is. Take that 4-digit code, which is unique to every Daikin 1 controller, by the way, and hit done. And now you'll see we're back at the very beginning screen that we were at the beginning of this video to go through and recommission the system. So if you're that guy who did not connect it to Wi-Fi, I apologize. You spent 20 minutes going through the commissioning process for a product you probably don't physically have installed, and now you need to go back and start all over. But hey, it's not that hard. It takes like 5 minutes. So English, hit continue. Now make sure you pick the correct system you physically have installed, and then click continue, and then click begin setup, and then go through all of the commissioning steps that we just discussed, but this time for the correct equipment you actually have installed. And once you're done with all of that, click on complete setup, and it will take you back to the home screen. So at this point, we are fully commissioned, and we have gone through pretty much everything on this thermostat with the exception of auxiliary heat, which I'll do in a future video. Well, guys, that's pretty much it for today. I know that was a ton of information. The Daikin 1 controller is still new. It's new for both the mini splits and VRV products. So I really wanted to just have everything in one video. That way you guys could take that, study it, refer back to it. I am going to be getting ready to do a new series here. In the next couple of weeks, we'll be wrapping up the Daikin 1 controller. So if you have any questions, please make sure you leave them in the comments below. That way I can make sure to address them before we finish up our Daikin 1 series. If you guys enjoyed today's video, please make sure you click the like button below. It really helps out the channel. And if you've been enjoying this series and enjoying the content on my channel, please consider subscribing. That really helps out the channel. You can do so by clicking the subscribe button below. And along with it, make sure you click that notification bell icon so you don't miss out on any future content as soon as it's released. Thank you so much for watching Inverter always. I hope you have an awesome day.